Hello, everyone. My name is Jake Johnstone, and welcome to the Grit with Wisdom podcast. This is the podcast that aims to delve deep into the inner psyche and the mindsets of mountain bikers from all aspects of our sport in order to help you understand some of the tools, the tactics, and what it takes to push the boundaries of our sport from a mental and emotional perspective. Today on the show, we have Matt Lowell. Matt is an extremely talented and focused mountain biker, coach, designer, and business manager. Originally from Scotland, he's another expat who just fell in love with the amazing trails, trees, and people over here in BC, Canada. So much so that he recently became a Canadian citizen. Huge congratulations on that one to Matty. I've worked and played alongside Matt for the past few years at local mountain bike experience company, Endless Biking. And those that know Matt will know that his calm, calculated attitude allows him to operate at a super high level, whether that be on the bike, working in the business, or out on the hill teaching and guiding. I've been lucky enough to learn an insane amount from Matt over the past few years, and I'm super excited today to have the opportunity to share some of those secrets that he uses to set the scene for success. So with no further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Matt Lowell. Matt, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, man.
Pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, it's awesome.
Fantastic. So we've been talking about doing this for a long time now, and you're a hard man to pin down.
Yeah.
So I'm stoked to finally get the opportunity to pick your brains before you head back over to Scotland.
Sure, man. Yeah.
I'm going to start with a big open-ended question. Feel free to take it any way you like.
Yeah.
But I'd love to know why. Why do you ride mountain bikes?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think like mountain biking's pretty rad. Like it's a sport that's pretty multifaceted. I think there's lots of different people involved. I think for me, I enjoy clearing my thoughts, like getting away from the sort of hustle and bustle of work and everything like that, and enjoy riding by myself quite a bit as well, and just getting out riding. And it's interesting where you can't really think about too much else, like I think when you're just riding in the forest. So it's a good stress reliever, I think, in some ways. Yeah,
man, totally. It's almost like meditation on two wheels, eh?
Yeah.
Fantastic, dude. So you grew up in Scotland. I'm curious, what was it like growing up in Scotland, and when did you start riding bikes?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think stuff got probably more sort of serious or like more like dedicated into it about maybe when I was like 15, something like this. Like I had a friend called Ross who ended up riding at a pretty high level on the road and on the velodrome and stuff like that. And but he also mountain biked as well, so it was interesting. We would get out and go for big rides and stuff together. But then I'm the youngest of four boys, so certainly the guinea pig off of all the jumps and pushed by my brothers anyway, I think, to be riding further and faster at a younger age compared to them. So they're a good starting point for getting into it all. Yeah,
man, that is awesome. Growing up with four brothers there, did that make you competitive at all?
Yeah, well, three older brothers. And then I'm the youngest. But I don't know. Like I think, I mean, where I grew up, we were pretty remote. Like we didn't have any neighbors. We weren't in a village or that. So it was literally just after school, it would be me and my brothers, and we'd be come home, dump our stuff, and then pretty much immediately get out on our bikes and would be outside. And I think it's less competitive relationship, I think, with them, but more just like just like healthy challenges to be riding, doing this jump, doing this drop or whatever, and things like that. So I think we had a pretty good sort of relationship between us that it wasn't too competitive, right?
Absolutely, man. I think that shows in your riding today. You're always looking for progression. Always kind of thinking about what's next and how you can get better. So that's awesome. Such a good start you had there. And I know, we've been working together for the last 4 years or so now at local company Endless Biking, which has been absolutely awesome. We've had so many great conversations and I've learned so much from you. One of them that really sticks out for me is a conversation we had around kind of who we ride with is important, or why, choosing our riding buddies wisely is important.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. I mean, totally. I mean, for me, it's interesting the vibe of a ride. Like and it's interesting saying like why mountain bike, like why do I ride? I think it's like, I want to get away from stuff, but it's like it's ultimately it's super fun. And I think for me that starts with who you're with, like who are you actually riding with, and the vibe that then that sort of collective then creates. And it can sometimes be like, like a vibe that's super progressive, and like you're sort of like working in collaboration with other riders, and you're feeling good, and you're trying this jump or railing these corners, or like whatever. Like and then I think other times, I think I've certainly been in group rides where even as a fairly competent rider, like have felt like, nah, no way, like I'm just going to take a back seat and just chill, and just like not push myself, because the vibe is like too macho, or too like somebody that's just overpowering, and you're like, man, I'm out, like I'm good totally for this.
I hear that. And it's interesting, isn't it? And kind of how that vibe, or who we're with, can kind of change our own headspace, and then change how we're riding. Curious, you spend a lot of time, you said, riding by yourself. Then a lot of time obviously at work riding with other people.
Totally.
But when you get into kind of your days off and you're maybe on a bigger group ride, how does your headspace change?
I mean, it's all dependent on who you're with. Like, I mean, like we ride bit together, that's super awesome. Like I think we have a good like level, like level playing field in terms of our like wants or desires from a ride. Like, so it's always fun. And I think riding with friend, like there's not that many people I think that I really ride with. Like I don't push out to be in a bigger group rides. I have been in the past, but I think like I've steered away from it, because I think it is like like I think it can create a vibe that's like you maybe don't want, like sometimes. So it's like, for me, there's a few people like riding with Levi, like these people that it's just like it's inspiring to ride with people who are better than you, like and you can see what they're doing, and you get excited for that, but then there's no a sense of pressure maybe, because but a sense of like reasoning or opening doors, like in my riding, like there's some people that I've ridden with that have been like, oh, like you've got this, like you should try this or whatever, and and that feels quite progressive at times, but
No, man, that's super interesting. I think it's a fine line between, progression and then having too much pressure to kind of take too big of a step. So that's awesome to hear how you kind of manage that.
Or like some people will have like a different reason for why they're there. Like for me, I ride for fun. Like I want to have fun. I'm maybe like not like maybe more of a cautious rider. Like I don't enjoy being injured, and I think with my work, like it's been a real issue to be injured. It's like, man, like it's a bummer. Like when you're off the bike, it's it's just a hassle managing people when you're injured and stuff like this. So it's nice to not be injured, although it's going to happen at some point, I think, but it's so it does play into my riding of like that risk. Like I'm not somebody who's like super risky riding. I'm definitely pretty calculated. But there's certainly some group rides or people that you ride with where the mental space that you can get into you'll be open. You're quite stoked to like push your riding a bit, and like it feels fun, it feels safe, and it's pretty rad. Like
for sure, I totally hear that. How often would you say you're kind of riding in your comfort zone then? If we could put it into a percentage, how often would you say you're kind of pushing that barrier versus just kind of riding where you're comfy?
I think for me, like it probably ebbs and flows. Like I think for the majority of the year, like where like you're riding a lot for work, so you're teaching, you're guiding, and then the rides that you have are like maybe more focused on just like getting out, enjoying like fitness, like trying to stay fit, enjoy the rides, and not necessarily about like making leaps and bounds forward in your riding. So for me, like, yeah, I probably within my comfort zone, like quite a lot, like I think, but certainly, yeah, like, you know, yeah, 25% of the time, maybe.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, cool. Like, let's try something. Let's get out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always a question I like to ask people because I think it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's different for everyone. Everyone's
Yeah.
kind of got a different reason to be out there.
Yeah.
Some people are out there solely just because they love the feeling of pushing themselves and
Yeah.
stepping up and up and up. And others are out there, yeah, just to kind of clear their head, enjoy nature,
Yeah.
have a good time, or to socialize as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's cool to hear. I'd say 25% is a fair bit.
Yeah.
Kind of a quarter of your rides out there
Yeah.
pushing it. It's certainly more than me. You know, I like to ride in my comfort zone a lot as well for the same kind of reasons. I like to ride all season and not spend half my season injured.
Totally.
So it totally makes sense. I know, like, when we're out there, we actually had a really interesting conversation when we're out there kind of pushing each other, trying out some new features a couple of months back. And you kind of described this process to me that you have for cataloging past rides and features so that you can use them as reference points for new trails. Can you speak a little bit on that? Yeah.
I mean, I'm a really visual person. Like, I like to, visualize how I'm going to ride through something and things like that. And I think something that helps me is being able to take like a mental photograph of a feature or section of trail that you've ridden in the past and be able to sort of reference back to that when you're trying to ride something new. Like, can I ride this? And, you know, I like to, you know, even when I'm teaching, I like to help people move away from the idea of reliance on hope. You know, I hope I can get through this. I hope this is going to work. And it's like, yeah, well, let's move away from hope and let's use, you know, this tool and this tool physically to get through this, but maybe mentally as well. We can also use these reference points to sort of tug from or pull from and be like, that's something that seems doable, you know, or I've ridden something very similar over on this trail. And it certainly helped me, like, so
removing some of those unknowns. Can I get down this? I'm not sure. I hope I can. You're kind of saying, I know I can get down this because I rode 3 other things that are similar.
It's like the likelihood of being able to get through this seems really doable. Seems doable.
Yeah.
So this is fun.
It sounds like a great way to kind of reduce that pressure, reduce that anxiety.
Yeah.
And then ride, you know, nice and loose.
Yeah.
Nice and
ride the way you want it, but totally. Because I think there's certainly times in the past, or, you know, not too many, but times for me in the past where you're looking down something and, you know, you're maybe on that group ride where there's like, you know, 4 guys and gals that are just like cruise down a section. And you're like, shit, like I need to just, and then you're not in the right headspace because you're just like, I need to catch up, I need to go, I need to like, and it's escalating, like, rather than you're just looking at stuff. Okay, cool, confident, riding down through. And maybe I'm a thinker, like visual, you know, visualizer, but also, you know, I need to think through something rather than just like go for it, see how it runs.
You're a designer by trade, right? So it totally makes sense to designing your riding technique.
No,
I love it. It sounds like a great way of kind of, you know, focusing on the controllable versus focusing on, you know, how far your buddies are ahead or how fast you need to be going, or something like this, like focusing on what can I do. And when you're taking those kind of mental screenshots, what kinds of things are you looking for? So if you're writing down another new line on the North Shore, what kinds of things are you looking for?
I think you're just trying to take any sort of reference point from it. Like, you know, maybe it's like, why is it an interesting fit section of trail? Is it because it's, you know, the gradients, like it's this steep here, you know, is it the surface that's like, it's a wooden surface, or is it skinny? Is it, you know, how long is that skinny? Like what's, you know, is it roots or so that you're like, okay, cool. Like I've ridden over that. Like, you know, just trying to capture the essence of what makes that section unique or, you know, or stand out. So that, you can reference back and, you know, at times, you know, in the future where, you know, and sometimes that means like you want to walk back up the trail a little bit and you would literally want to stand and look at it, literally look at it. Okay, that's what this looked like, and you know, remember what it felt like so that you can tap back into that a little bit.
Totally. Yeah, we were chatting and kind of saying, you know, there's a trail on the local shuttle lap here that's quite gnarly. We ride kind of every lap just because we ride it every lap. It's a trail we all ride. We're really comfortable with it now, but then kind of taking a screenshot of that and taking it to a new trail. on first glance, sometimes those new trails can seem really gnarly because they're way out
gnarly,
there and it's all new.
Yeah.
But if we actually compare it objectively, we're like, oh, it's a similar gradient. It's made of rock. It's also quite wet. It's also some roots.
Yeah.
We can ride this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, for sure. And it's funny, I think like without these, I think you can get to a point where you might ride a trail quite a few times, but there's always a section that you haven't ridden yet. And it's like this, it's coming, and you get there and it's like, it's easier to be like, nah, I'm not going to ride it today. And it becomes this like mystery little section of trail that you might not ride, or you just ride around the feature. And that can happen a lot. Like you see that on like Espresso or something with like Big Smooth, like people ride around it because it's just this like gnarly section, and they just ride around it because they ride around it.
Yeah, totally. And on first glance, it's what's going on. It's high up in the air. It's skinny. It's a roll down. There's a corner afterwards.
Totally. But then maybe but maybe they're riding down Executioner and they're riding down some other stuff which is just steep, or whatever. So it's
interesting sometimes kind of breaking it down, being like, well, what is this feature actually? Like, what skills does it require to ride?
Yeah.
And for that example, Big Smooth, it's like, okay, so we need to be able to go slow.
Yeah.
Maybe do a track stand on top if we need to. We need to be able to do a roll down.
Yeah.
And then stay low enough to recover afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think I could actually do all that stuff when we stop thinking about the height and all the other, maybe irrelevant cues going on around it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Super interesting. So when you're out there kind of with your coaching hat on, you're out there on the North Shore, how do you go about setting riders up for success?
What, mentally, for their mental game?
Well, both. You're out there, they're trying out new features, they're trying out new trails.
Yeah.
What are some boxes you kind of want to tick to ensure that you're going to set them up for a fun ride?
I think it's about, good technique. Like it's what we're looking to, give people. It's good technique so that they can, move away from like it being unknown. Like I sometimes use the analogy of like lenses. Like, we teach people braking, positioning, teach people, how to operate their mountain bike. These are all these sort of tools in your tool belt, and you want to think about which tools are you pulling out, or which lenses are you looking at a section of trail, or looking through to look at a section of trail that helps you ride it. So you might get, it's cool if people can start looking at a section of trail and thinking about like, okay, well, what does this look like in terms of braking? Like, how am I going to use my brakes to get through this section? Okay, how am I going to use positioning and range of movement in order to get through this section? And then isolating these sort of lenses starts to build a picture in itself of how you're going to ride that section of trail.
Totally. And then you're kind of thinking about what you can do to control the situation versus like
rather than
everything else that could go wrong. Totally.
I hope I make it.
Or just holding on and hoping for the best.
And moving away from that and being more calculated and more and ultimately having more fun, because you're like, sweet, like this is what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it. And now it's just doing it. And
that kind of allows space for fun, doesn't it? The less anxiety, the less interference we have. The more calm, the more happy we're going to be on the bike. And how many of these different lenses do you think people or yourself can effectively look through at one time for one feature?
I mean, ultimately I think it gets to the point where you need to ride. You're going to ride. It needs to come naturally, I think. So whether like when you're actually riding, you're sort of able to isolate things out, but maybe it's more before, like when you sit the bike down and you're having a look and you're building up to riding something.
Totally.
That's maybe where you're looking through these lenses. And then when you're riding, it's like it's go time. Like there is a point where you need to switch and you need to ride through. So you may be trying to pick the most important one, maybe even if it's like this is heavily reliant on good braking technique, like let's just focus on that one aspect. Or if it's positioning and like I need to be able to like do a really good roll down here, or whatever it is. So maybe one.
That's great advice. I ask because like I can't think of any more than like 2 or 3 things when I'm visualizing a feature, or else it's too much. It's kind of information overload. And I don't think about anything in enough depth to really have any meaning. So totally agree there. And this could be similar, but for yourself, when you're out there riding, maybe you are pushing yourself a little bit, finding yourself, in a bit of a challenging situation. Do you have any kind of key principles that you personally use for operating in an optimal state of mind?
well, it's funny. Like a ride the other day, we were riding down, some trails on Frome that, like I'd ridden a couple times before, and they're steep. It's off the map, and it's like, it's pretty steep and pretty deep in there, and it's I think coming into that, there's a few things that like that day that were working quite well for me. I think the vibe of the ride was cool. Like, it was a good vibe. It was no like ego, it's no pressure. And then also the pace of the ride was quite good. It was actually pretty slow. Like, we were going down some short trails pretty slowly, given time for people to look at stuff, like be like, oh yeah, like try this and that, but then also not so slow where you're overthinking things. Like, totally. So for me, it's nice to look at something. Okay, cool. This is the lines where we're going to go, and learning to trust your gut a little bit, or trust that instinct. Totally, of like, that's okay. That's what I'm going to do. This is how this is going to work, and let's do that. So
trust is a huge part of it, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think without trust, we can have the best process, the best skills, the best bike in the world. But if we don't actually trust ourselves to physically ride the feature, we're not going to move.
Totally.
Go anywhere.
Yeah. So being able to look at it and take away like quite quickly, like, within the first 10 seconds of looking at something, you're probably going to make that call of, am I riding this, am I not? And there's many factors why you might choose to ride it, and factors where you might not. Like, is everybody ahead of you, like way down the trail, and they're like, and you're like, like, nah, I'm just gonna leave this, let's just go, like, or or is it something that people are stoked to look at and pick apart and work out what's going on? So
for sure. And when you're kind of standing there at the top of features, picking them apart and thinking about how you might ride them, how long would you say it typically is between, like, when you're like, am I going to ride this, and then when you get to either the yes or no decision point?
Yeah, sometimes not long. Like, sometimes, it's like seconds, 20 seconds, something like this. Like, sometimes I'll be like, and sometimes it'll be like a hard no, like, nah, like, and sometimes I think it can quite quickly be like, like, that's cool, like, this looks cool, like, absolutely. I think I can see myself doing that. Then I'll maybe spend a bit more time, like, actually really thinking about it, maybe walking or checking out traction, like, how much traction does that have? Like, okay, not much here, like, okay, cool, a little bit more there. So thinking through a bit more in depth, but it's pretty quick, I think, sometimes.
That reminds me of, one of the analogies you use when you're out teaching, but I'm sure you use it in your own writing as well, kind of dividing the trail up. And can you kind of talk us through that analogy there?
Yeah, totally.
Night tour progression sessions.
A little bit of lunch here, a little bit.
You gotta walk us through how that works.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, this is something which, through Endless, like, it's we're encouraged to teach in terms of just breaking the trail into manageable sections, whether it's easy bits, hard bits, points in the trail to really burst and put down power, and other points to rest, or whether it's just trying to pick apart, like, other parts where you have more traction, less traction, whatever it may be, but it's important to break it down into smaller sections, because it's too easy, I think, especially here on the shore, where the trails from if you look from the start to the end, are super gnarly.
Yeah, totally.
But if you start breaking it down, you can start to see, like, there's these little, safety points or little easy points along the way, whether it's uphill or downhill.
Yeah, it's almost like, where's my next point of safety? Like, where can I brake? Where can I have a micro break before thinking about the next steep?
Absolutely. Just get tall, relax a bit. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and breathe there as well.
Go through
that's a huge one.
Yeah.
So often we accidentally hold our breath on the really hard bits, which is probably the worst thing to do. So it's like, all right, where can I relax my nervous system a little bit before?
Yeah, and enjoy it again, like, because you're supposed to be shitting yourself the whole way down the trail. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly right. And it's interesting kind of using that technique going up as well. I know I still tell people to this day, it's one of the most important things.
Yeah.
I was taught by you when I moved here to the North Shore.
Yeah.
I think it was my second ride. We were climbing up the climb trail on Mount Seymour.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, oh wow, what have I got into? It's all hard.
Yeah.
All I was seeing was the hard bits, it's roots, it's rocks, it's switchbacks, it's steep.
Yeah.
It's hard. And you kind of said to me, hey man, just look for the easy bits
and chill out
and don't pedal. That was it.
Stop.
Just stop. It could not have been more valuable, I think, to this day. It's like easy bits, hard bits, rest, recover.
Totally.
It's made everything else so much easier.
Yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah, it's funny because it's too many folk just going all the time and clipping pedals and just like puffing themselves out, and then it's like mountain biking's hard. Well, damn right it's hard if you go hard the whole
we're kind
time.
of on the red line till ancient
just try and manage it, right? And relax, and
exactly that. So we talked about kind of your mindset or your state of mind for setting up for a steep North Shore trail. Curious, you've told me lots of good stories of being out on missions with your brothers in the Scottish Highlands.
Totally.
Does this state of mind, does it change for when you're out on like an all-day mission? You're not sure when you're going to get home. You're not sure where your brothers are taking you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the mental game with that is, I don't know, perseverance, man. Like riding with Dave is always an adventure for sure. It's going to be, 4 times longer than you think, and you're going to be carrying your bike 20 times for sure. So it's definitely like long adventures, and it's super fun. But for that, I think technically, I think I'm a better rider than my brothers. I can ride at a higher level, so we're not getting into maybe terrain that's pushing like the boat, like like I'm pushed by people here and stuff in BC. But I think like it's a different type of mental game. You gotta be mentally prepared to be out there for a long time, and
totally, and almost like okay with not being
totally not
just with the unknown.
Totally, absolutely. Where are we going?
Huge. And I'm sure elements of that kind of transpose across to when you're back here riding on the shore. Maybe riding down a new off the map trail or something like that, and you're like, what's down here? I don't know. Interesting, man. It's good experiences. And in terms of like setting yourself goals and getting better out there on the bike, how do you go about setting yourself goals that are achievable, challenging, yet fun at the same time?
It's funny. I mean, I think, there's certainly times where it'd be good for me to probably set more goals. I think there's times where I think I'm like just riding and just enjoying riding there, and but there's certainly goals this year, like riding like Squamish enduro, stuff like this. Like these are all things I haven't done in the past, like doing any enduro races and stuff, and that was a cool goal because it pushed me to like think about fitness, like riding longer, riding further, getting some big days in and stuff like that. And I think it's I don't know, like whatever floats your boats in terms of like a good challenge, like something that's
cool, instead of always stepping it up with the technique or riding steeper and steeper, harder and harder terrain. Like, hey, why don't I step it up in the fitness realm or endurance kind of thing.
I mean, that's the thing, like I ride for fun, so it's like, what is fun? Like for me, higher consequence trails that have like the steepest, the gnarliest sections is not necessarily where I think what I find the most fun anyway. I think there's other, it's a feeling like I'm trying to chase that feeling of like of ripping down a trail and having the best time, and it doesn't necessarily need to be the steepest, gnarliest trail for sure. I have more fun elsewhere, I think, sometimes.
For sure. Have you got any favorite trails here on the shore that are kind of right in the fun zone?
I don't know. I mean, like our ride the other day was pretty sweet. I mean,
absolutely.
It's like I mean, it's like Dempsey, Braemar and Frome, lower laps around in that zone, super fun. Rides still hard trails, like lower Cripplers, pretty sweet, like it's feature to feature, but it's like it's not like unbelievably high consequence stuff, like in the backcountry of Britannia Beach and all this stuff. It's just like you're just out there,
you're on the edge of a cliff and you're out there.
But then, I mean, over on Seymour, I think, we were riding TNT and, CBC just had so much work on it. Like, these are rad trails, like, just like the history of it all, and really fun, cool, unique trails to ride.
For sure. And I think for us, it's right at that level where we're able to ride things that are maybe just outside of our comfort zone. But not so far out that we're taking huge risks.
Totally.
Risking time off the bike.
And it's quite easy, I think, to look at some of those sections of trail and be like understand what to do and how to ride it. And it's like, oh yeah, cool, like that's what I'm going to do, let's try that. Yeah, sweet, awesome. And then you can maybe start to ride it differently, or maybe you can ride a little quicker, or without necessarily upping the massive risk factor.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, maybe
So,
it's a little faster, or maybe a little more style, or
ride it better. Yeah.
For sure, man. Yeah, that's a really good approach. And talking about learning, you were out on a really cool work ride recently. I think it was maybe your last one there with Endless, before you went into full-time van building for your road trip here. You're out on this Rocky Mountain free ride camp with Thomas Vanderham, which was all for youth. I think they were 12 years or so.
Yeah, average age was around like 12, 13 or so. There was some 15-year-olds, but mostly around 12. And yeah, amazing, super fun day. Like awesome to see the kids riding, like unbelievable riders at that age, and unbelievable sort of context that they're just growing up within, like, and they don't, not that they don't realize it, they just don't know anything different. So it's amazing to be like, wow, like you have such a cool network of trails and sort of resources, like like Endless, and tapping in with Rocky, into like riding with Thomas Vanderham.
Like, 12 years old, they're riding with Thomas Vanderham.
And they're pretty casual about it.
And it's just like, this is the normal.
Yeah.
Like riding black trails on the shore is their normal.
Yeah.
It's just their backyard.
I mean, it's ridiculously stoked to be there and all that. And they, appreciate it, but it's cool. Like, it's what a place to grow up.
Absolutely, man. That's unreal. And good on you. As like coming from a guidance perspective, what was kind of the biggest thing you took out, or the biggest thing you've seen, the kids doing, maybe something they could, learn from, or maybe something they taught you?
Yeah, totally. I think it's interesting riding with a mix of ages, and I think you do see, riding with like quite a contrast between riding with youth to adults. Adults, we have a lot of baggage, we have stuff going on, our lives are complicated, there's other people relying on us, so we sometimes that can hinder our sort of gung-ho like attitude to get going and try some stuff, where with the youth, like they're not fearless, they're definitely like battling within themselves of like, should I do this, could I do this, like, and but I would say it's inspiring watching them just like ripping down trails and like pushing themselves and opening up. You're like, okay, we got this, and they're like, yeah, man, I got this. Like, don't worry, like, watch this. Totally. And you're like, man, you've got that. Yeah, better than me. Like, I'm better at writing down some stuff. It's
interesting, isn't it? Yeah, sometimes they don't have some of that baggage. They almost like don't have their mind holding them back, even just that 10% that we sometimes have.
Totally.
I think what I see in kids is often like they're full of confidence, even if the technical skills aren't necessarily like fully cooked yet. They're not quite as good as they could be. The kids are like, oh, it's okay, I've got this. Like, it's all good. Yeah. And because they believe, like,
which can
they do
make up for it.
They do have it. Like, they usually get it.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, whereas a lot of the time, we see with adults we're teaching, like the adults have got it.
Yeah.
But they don't know that they have it. They don't quite have that trust or that belief. Because they're thinking about all the what ifs, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, it's super rewarding, like as an instructor, like to be able to help adults break through that. Like, you might take them through like a safe progression of like feature to feature, and then you're at the feature that they want to ride, and they're a bit like, oh, and being able to say like, well, look, like this is what you've done, this is how we're going to, the progression that you've gone through to get here. So I know, and I think you've got this, you can do this. So how are you feeling? Like, but just being able to say like, I know, I think you got this. Like, then totally. They're like, okay, like sweet, and then they got it, and then they can ride through, and whatever it may be, like whatever, rolling into the top of Floppy Bunny or something like this, like nothing crazy, but to some people it is like, that's totally. Like wild,
big roll down. Yeah.
So,
and if I wanted to learn how to go down the Floppy Bunny there, the entrance there, the double wooden roller, would you take me straight to Floppy Bunny? What would your process be?
Yeah, no, for sure. Not like, I think it's not a set, like necessary. If that's your goal, if that's where you want to be, it's not a appropriate place to be learning. Like, you want to be dialing it down in order to sort of, dial up the terrain later. We often talk about it at work, like where we talk about, multiple dials, but like terrain dial and technique dial. And for me, I want to see it in my riding, but also in others, where you can turn down the terrain in order to just like dial in technique, and then we can turn up the terrain while the technique is dialed up, up as
Yeah.
well. So
I think it's a lot easier to learn when we're not kind of scared out of our brains, thinking
Totally.
about what about that thing I'm about to roll down? What
Yeah.
about that thing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
when you're able to just think about, okay, like what's the technique? I'm gonna give this like 100% of my concentration.
And it's sometimes a challenge to do that with some adults though as well, like, because I think some, like the youth, like some adults are like overly, cocky and confident, like, oh yeah, like, what, like, why do we need to like turn this down? Like, oh, I just want to ride into flocking. You're like, well, like, man, like let's like, one, you're maybe not riding as hard, like well as maybe you think you are. So in order to just safely progress, like, and actually be able to get to riding that later in this lesson or next lesson, let's work on technique. Yeah,
totally. Yeah, I think it's sometimes hard not to let the ego get in the way.
Yeah,
in situations where you're like that, you might be like, hey, I'm a black level rider, so why do I have to ride a blue, or why should I ride a gravel path?
Yeah, well, it comes back to that vibe thing, eh? Like burst the bubble of the vibe, like whatever, man. Like let's just let's have more fun. Like,
it's all about kind of getting back to that task focus, isn't it? It's like, what are the steps to break down in order to get to my goal?
Yeah,
focus on those steps, and then like the goal takes care of itself.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. Well, speaking about kind of legends that you've had the opportunity to ride with over the last few years, here in Canada, absolutely. You've also had the opportunity to ride alongside Wade Simmons a whole bunch of times. But I'm curious, what was your most memorable moment, if you had to pick one?
I think probably riding in Crankworks. Like, it was last time Crankworks was on. Like, when was that? It was like 2020. 20 could have been, or 2019 or something like that. But it was awesome. And again, through like endless and rocky collaboration, getting out, demoing bikes with people from all around the world. But Wade's there is the main guy. He's the showman for the time. But there's a guide, like, there to keep this, everyone safe and everyone rolling rubber side down. But just good times. Like, there's so many little bits, like, from maybe getting a little off the map, like going after some trails that you maybe wouldn't typically ride with clients, but Wade's always up for an adventure, so it's pretty cool. All the way to margaritas at the bar and hot tubbing. So
it sounds like good times. And it amazes me, some of these stories, because you're not necessarily riding with riders that would typically be on off the map trails or even black trails. But you guys are there as a team, kind of managing these riders of all different experience levels. On some pretty gnarly, pretty out there terrain.
For sure. Well, you're on like a Whistler double black, and testament to like Darren and Kelly at Endless, like, just their ability to like quickly dial in, like, and know when to like just drop in some like real strong instruction and feedback for riders to just like get them through things, and they're stoked to receive that, like, in that moment of time. And
totally,
it was super cool to watch that, and emulate it as best as possible. But it's it's really good times for sure.
I think that decision making process that like Darren and Kelly have,
I
think it's just huge, isn't it? It's only possible through all those years of experience. It really
totally
really shines in moments like that. Like, holy shit.
No, definitely. And it's been cool. Like with the Vanderham ride the other day, it's certainly interesting. Like, there's, I think I've learned to, be confident in your own ability of like, okay, we've ran through like this lesson, we've given this content, so let's move forward. Like, awesome, they're getting it. Let's go and ride some cool stuff, rather than maybe some newer instructors that are very hesitant, like a bit like helicopter in around it, like, oh, like, we got to keep everything super safe. Like, it is safe because we've done our job. Like, we know what we're doing. And
totally, it's just like riding itself, isn't it? Sometimes you do all the preparation, you do all the training you can, but then there always comes that point when there's kind of that last 10% of unknown, and you actually have to do the thing. And it's the same when you're teaching someone. It can be really hard. You want to hold their hand the whole way, keep them safe. But then it always gets to that last bit when it's like, right, man, like, we've done all this training, we've done all this preparation, like, now it's time to do it. Like,
and enjoy it, like, rather than being like stressed about it.
And just be like, know that you've done all this work and you're ready for this. It's like, like, drop in but smile about it. Like, you're ready. Interesting. So kind of crankworks aside, I'm curious, do you have any kind of routine that you do, pre and post ride in order to set yourself up for success?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the best rides I have, I think, physically getting prepped, like, like eating well, hydrating well, but then doing a warm up, like actually warming up physically. Like, I'm not a super, super fit guy, but, I can easily ride all day on the shore or whatever. But it's like, for me, like taking the time to like maybe climb, like I'm living in valleys, so pedaling up to Frome, like it's, you might pedal for 45 minutes, just like at a slower pace and just like actually warm up. There's been some rides where we've dropped straight into stuff like really quickly or like really abruptly into like massive climbs, and it just like derails the ride, I think, immediately, and it can be tough like to get back on. So taking the time to like physically warm up for sure. But yeah, mentally, I don't know. I think like for me, it comes back to like maybe like choosing who you're riding with, like
Totally.
and trying to create that vibe, like just like cool, like picking who you're riding with, making sure you're with good friends, good folk to ride with, and and if none of them are around, like I enjoy riding by myself. I can just go and ride and create my own vibe on a ride.
Totally. And I think that kind of warm-up ride you're talking about there helps both physically and mentally, doesn't it? It's the kind of time to kind of unwind everything you've been thinking about, maybe work stuff or whatever, kind of slowly floats out of your mind, and all of a sudden you get up to the top and you're like, all right, cool. Now I'm here, now I'm present. I'm ready to ride. I know I struggle kind of doing shuttle laps sometimes for that reason. I love shuttles, they're a great time. But sometimes I get to the top and I'm just kind of all over the place.
It can take a lap to be like, oh man.
And we're usually dropping, straight into steep stuff because we're at the top of the mountain. So it can be tricky compared to climbing up. By the time you're there, you're like, you've been riding for an hour or so. So well and truly warmed up. Interesting. So speaking of challenges, what's been one of your biggest challenges on the bike? Whether it's been, like an injury or a certain kind of skill or trail you've been trying to tick off. If you any big challenges that come to mind?
I think for me, like, skill wise, like getting in the air, like I think is one of the biggest challenges for me. Like, I think technically, I can feel more comfortable riding through technical sections of trail than I can going down a jump trail. Like, I still enjoy getting in, like, in the Whistler Bike Park and all this and stuff, and hitting some jumps, but is for sure where I feel the most like daunted, for sure, like rolling into some bigger jumps. So I think that is a constant goal, and working towards being more confident in the air. I
think a lot of people here on the North Shore could relate to that. We just don't have many jump trails, do we? Like,
no, for
we've
sure.
got all the tech in the world, so we almost become like this product of our environment. A lot of us really like riding kind of slow technical trails and picking it apart because we practice every day.
What we can do.
It's like, how many times do we get to Whistler Bike Park in between work?
Not
as many,
much.
right?
No.
So in terms of kind of working on your jumping, what have been some ways that you've kind of worked on that or managed to progress over the years?
I think it was super cool, like taking the PMBI level 2, like taking the air course. You start to build like context around how you would like teach jumping and drops and stuff to others. So that in itself, like, inevitably sort of feeds into your own riding. And for somebody like me who like is a bit of a thinker and like needs to visualize through stuff, it's really cool because it gives you the ability to self-assess and give yourself some good technique. And I think for me, like, there's certainly been times, and probably go in and out of it, but like just taking the time to like go and session some jumps, like just go to whatever jumps we have, like there's some on Lower Expresso or Digger or Lutette Bike Park, and just like go and put the time in a little bit. So certainly in waves, like I do that, sometimes I would like pedal up, do a quick like Expresso lap, and then just go to Lutette Bike Park and just do some jumps. But
that's awesome. So just putting in the reps.
On
the bike training. I love it.
Changing your you're right, like you don't necessarily need to be like on the trail all the time. Like, can you just go in session like a small part? Like, you know, if you ride 4 times a week, then maybe one of those rides is just like a skill progression ride.
Totally. Yeah, that's a really good way of doing it. You know, often as adults, we're not doing that, are we? We're just riding. We might ride for 4 hours without thinking about any specific skills or slowing down to kind of session things and think about that. And then we'll see kind of kids wheeling down the street. And
totally.
It's like they've been practicing every night without even knowing it. They've been practicing going round and around the block doing wheelies.
Yeah.
So I think we can learn from that sometimes.
Yeah.
And you know what you were saying there about the PMBI course is like so huge. I think, you know, not only like learning how to do the techniques we might already be doing, like we might already be jumping, but I think learning the right way, so that we can have the confidence to be like, right, I'm actually doing this the right way. I can assess myself. I know I went into that course kind of, I was already dropping, I was already jumping. I thought it was the teaching part I was going to learn. But then I kind of got in there and my world was turned on its head. I was like, actually, I've been doing this all wrong. I'm not setting myself up for success. And then I know kind of coming out of that, my confidence was so much more.
Definitely.
Because I was like, right, I've got the right tools. I know the 2 things I need to think about. I can forget about everything else right now. Much more focused.
Definitely. So
definitely helps having a mentor kind of pick out all the different bits of information and tell you kind of which bits are
these are the critical
important
things to think about.
Like right now in your curve of progression.
And
maybe later on when you're already doing jumping really well, like you might be thinking about whipping or something. It's like right now, that's not a problem.
No, for sure.
Fantastic. Do you ever have difficulties or bad days on the bike? Maybe you're halfway down a trail, you're like, things just aren't working that well today, not feeling that good.
If
so, you know, what do you do in that situation?
I think, you know, we're all humans. You know, I think there's times when you're going to be riding really well and everyone seems to be, you know, gelled together and you're having a great time. But there's other times where it's a challenge, like, and you know, whether it be, I don't know, there's too much going on, or there's something up with your bike, or something's just not working right. And I think it's, for me, I think you know, I don't know, quite good or quite bad maybe sometimes, of just like recognizing that and being like, okay, like just like toning the ride down, being able to just like, okay, well, it's not a ride that I'm going to be like riding this the fastest or whatever, and just trying to be okay with like just cruising and just like having a chill ride. I think it's like easier said than done, but I think it's like comes back to that, like why we ride. Like it's supposed to be fun. Like this is like, so not putting pressure on yourself, or you know, I don't think I put pressure on myself to have to like perform at the highest level that I know I can every single ride. You know, it's good to do that sometimes, like, hey, like, okay, like let's have you know, ride the best you can, like sometimes. But I think it's not human to be at that level all the time. So
I think
being okay with that.
It's a really important thing to be able to listen to your body and kind of say, okay, like today's the day I'm going to push myself. Feeling good, the stars have aligned. And then those other days to just be like, hey, I'm really not feeling it today. No particular reason, but like that's okay. I know there'll be many more.
And you may not be like at the start of the ride, like, okay, like let's have a great day. Like you're always going to be saying that, but it's like in the ride, you have to just be like acknowledge what's happening. And it's just like, you know, seen it with friends, like, you know, sometimes like you're like, they're just having an off day as well. And it's like, they're getting pissed off, and you can see it in the ride, and you're like, like, look, man, like, you know, we know you can ride that feature, man, but like, don't worry about it. Like, let's chill and let's just have fun.
Do you have any kind of techniques you'll use yourself to kind of maybe snap out of cycles of frustration or snap out of kind of negativity on a ride?
I mean, I'm not sure really. Nothing stands out as such, but I think try not get there, like
totally
first place, maybe, like
try and minimize that interference in the first place.
Like frustration, like why frustration, like what, like we're here for fun, like why are we getting frustrated on a ride as such? But
how about on one of these long rides with your brothers when you're like, okay, mate, we're meant to be back by dinner time, what's going on? How do you kind of handle that, just keep pushing forward?
You
know, without
well, it makes me think like one of the last rides we rode, maybe, I don't know, it was a 12-hour ride. We were 6 hours, you know, 5 hours, like furthest point away from where we started. And the rear triangle of the bike I was riding with snapped. Jesus. So we're now the furthest possible
5
point
hours
away.
away.
And we used an inner tube and zip ties. We pulled the inner tube as tightly as possible and wrapped it around the frame. It's pretty gnarly brake, so it like locked back together.
Yeah, mechanicals don't get much worse than a frame snap. That's pretty much as bad as things get.
Just enough to be able to like put weight on the bike, enough strength just to roll, through, carry it. And we ended up taking a completely different route right along a loch side, and we were passing bikes from one to another, like hiking our way along this sort of rugged cliff edge bit. And it was tough, but like I think in those points of time, like you've got no other choice, man. Like this is what is happening. You don't have cell reception, and it's what's happening. So there's no two ways about it.
It reminds me of that old saying. It's like, well, we're here now, we might as well enjoy it.
Totally. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah,
it might be a few hours of silence and just like, we're just going, but
totally. Well, good stories to look back on anyway. Yeah. Well, what makes you passionate or gets you motivated when it comes to biking?
I think it's these stories, it's these past experiences that that you can look back on and have like so much fun. Like look where bikes have brought us. You know, you're all the way from Australia, I'm all the way from Scotland, and like we meet here, we met so many other cool people, and it's pretty awesome to see that the bike is not just a vehicle for getting down the trail, but like for meeting with communities and getting to rad places. And it's pretty cool. So I think it's motivates me, certainly looking towards like this summer, is like the sort of unknown of where we're going, who we're going to be meeting, whatever, these sorts of things. But I know it's going to be rad. Like it's going to be cool for sure.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Great answer. I can see the passion in your voice and your face as you're talking about that. And maybe you can explain for the listeners here, like, what are you up to right now? You're totally pretty exciting times ahead, right?
Yeah, it's been a big change for sure. So it's like 8 years or so there with Endless, and so big decision to make. But we're ultimately moving back over to Scotland in the fall. Deciding to take 2 months, maybe 2 and a bit months, just to try and travel in BC, like see parts of BC that we haven't done so far, and get up further north, get up to Williams Lake and Terrace, Smithers, these sorts of places. And it would be it's going to be really cool. So buying a van, doing van life for a couple of months, and trying to sort of integrate into some of these communities and do some cool stuff along the way.
That's fantastic, man. And I know you've got a pretty dream set up there in the works in your van with a couple of bikes under the bed.
Totally.
Tell us, what 2 bikes did you decide to take on this trip?
Trying to hit the 2 ends of the scale, and I'll be riding the Rocky Mountain Altitude and then the Element as well. So fantastic. 2 bikes is good. It's my partner can ride one, I'll ride the other when we ride together. But I think BC is so varied, like across the province we have so many different types of riding. So trying to think of something that we can hit some bike parks with, but then also get out and do some mega alpine big long rides. So
it's pretty cool seeing the trail bike in there as well. These days it's so often we're all riding like big 170, 180 mil bikes. Tell us about your ride. You got this Element all rigged up the other day, and it's all the shame basically.
Trying to see what it's capable of. I mean, 47k across Frome and Seymour in one ride, and ending at Deep Cove Brewery. But like it's remarkably capable. It's pretty rad. Like riding Dales, and these sorts of trails, and
so going down some solid black trails. What is it, a 120 mil?
120 mil. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Stock cross country tires too, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, it comes with them, so I don't know. Rocky's trying to stock them, so why not run them? See what it's about.
Well, that's cool. It's kind of homage to, it's not all about the equipment, is it? It's like, well, you've got a solid set of skills.
Yeah, totally.
So sometimes you can get away with maybe a little less suspension, maybe a little less grip on the tires.
And or changing the sort of lens you look through, like riding Dales, riding these sorts of trails, but probably not as fast as on the Altitude. But it's certainly fun, like for sure.
Sounds like a rad day, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, over the last 7 years or so at Endless, you've had the opportunity to work with so many mentors, and I'm sure you've taken in so much.
Yeah.
But if you could pick any one bit of advice that a mentor or maybe a workmate has given you, what would it be? Like a best bit of advice or thing you just really took out and remembered?
Oh, geez.
Tough question, eh?
Yeah, I think. Well, that's a hard one. Yeah, I think like riding wise, I think my feedback consistently from like Darren and stuff is to have like more buying in my riding.
Okay,
So
yeah.
trying to, it was interesting, like flipping from SPDs back to flats like about 2 or 3 years ago, and just really thinking more about my feet and trying to like push through the trail, pump the trail more. That's been something that I've been like, cool. Like if I can, take a bit of advice from Darren, like sweet, yeah, let's for sure. But yeah, I think there's lots of advice. Yeah, lots of little things along the way. It's hard to pick out something precise, but
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. Sometimes those little things aren't little, are they?
Yeah.
Like something like, more boing in your riding,
Yeah.
which probably means nothing to the untrained ear, but
Yeah.
for yourself, you're like, oh, that's been
cool.
huge. It's made a big difference.
Yeah, or it gives a focus. Yeah, to have more fun. I mean,
it makes you a more active rider, doesn't it? You're giving more input to the trail.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I know kind of lessons wise, we're often in the shop there kind of bouncing ideas, bouncing lesson plans off each other.
Yeah.
I'm curious, seeing as though we're here talking about the mental side of things today, if you were to deliver a lesson on the mental side of things for mountain biking, so just a regular kind of intermediate rider, what kind of advice would you want to include in that lesson?
Yeah, I think like, probably touched a little bit like on like what we're saying about with like these, like visual cues. I think it's interesting to have them, break down features, like focus on, these lenses of like the what to do, when to do it, how much to do it. These sorts of aspect, trying to really focus in on what you can do, what the feature actually is, like how much traction there actually is, like base it in reality rather than in the sort of like whirlwind of like, voices or sort of images of like, well, I'm going to fall down there. Like, well, no, like let's look at what we can do. How can we do this? Like the more practical side of riding.
Totally. So it's like, what can I do in the present versus like what could happen way out here in the future?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So focusing in on.
What about if someone's kind of focused on maybe a past event, maybe they've had a crash or had a bad experience with woodwork before or something like this?
Yeah.
What are some things you'll do there?
Well, I think toning it down, like tone down the terrain. Like let's go look at maybe some of these things. Start to build that picture of what that actually, like what woodwork can be like again. Maybe it's about toning down the terrain to dial up technique and sort of be okay with taking a step back in order to go forward.
For sure,
yeah.
I think sometimes it can be a difficult thing to do, in our riding. For like,
for
I
sure,
used to be here and
I
just want to be back there again. But
yeah,
it's like sometimes we do need to take that step back.
It's
like kind of like doing rehab. If we break a bone or something like that, sometimes we need to build our strength back before we go the same way to the gym.
And people are okay with doing that. It's physical injury, there's and they have to do it. But with that, mental injury, even myself, like there's times where I've crashed and like not come back, like really not that confident, and it's like being okay with just like getting out, getting some mileage, trying to tone the terrain down to just turn up technique again and go from there.
Yeah, totally, man. Really wise advice there.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I'm sure there's loads, but what has riding taught you?
I think like, confidence in your ability. Yeah, for sure. The confidence in what you can do, whether it's be, like ride 47K by yourself on an element, like, or whatever. It's like, sure. Like leave in the morning, come back later in the day and have a good time. But, confidence in that, confidence in, in yourself is what you can achieve. I think it's a real, like, self-esteem builder, like really, like as people, it's like there's a lot of stuff that can get us down a lot, but I think mountain biking is a sport which is like can build self-esteem, like builds a good healthy self-image, and ultimately pretty rad sport for building people up.
For sure, dude. And a great way of kind of connecting with people from all walks of life as well, isn't it? And kind of becoming more confident, just talking to loads of different people as well, because you're
Oh,
naturally surrounded by them.
Yeah. Mountain bike's pretty cool for people, wacky bunch of folk, but,
Absolutely.
pretty fun. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So kind of digging into your head a little more here, when you're riding along, I'm curious kind of what your inner dialogue looks like, or whether you have any kind of favorite mottos or anything like that you'll say to yourself to kind of keep yourself grounded while you're out there.
Going down the trail, I don't know, like, I don't know if there's anything like particular. I think there's times where I certainly think about, like, and we've talked about it, like in terms of like our breathing, like trying to like actually breathe, like, but there's no like motto.
Totally. So
there might be times where like I, like just like looking ahead, like get your eyes up, or or
so even just a couple of words there, like breathe or get your eyes up.
Yeah, totally. And just like okay, like you got this, like, if you've just gone through like a bit of a wild section, it's like, okay, like reset, let's chill, like, okay, cool, back in.
And when you talk about kind of pressing that reset button, like what are you doing? Are you breathing, or like you're taking a moment off the bike? Like, how do you reset?
You may, I think for me it's like just reminding it, like if you like not have a crash, but say you're close to it or whatever, but like maybe it's just like get back into like full control. So just like being like super centered on your bike, like tall, relaxed, like and like chill, like, okay, cool, got this, and feel 100% in control. And then you're like, okay, now it's like a reset, like now I can just roll forward from here. Like that was back there, but I'm like fully control.
For sure. So
might be, what that might mean, like sort of manifests itself in is like slowing down, like literally slowing down, just being on the trail, like, okay, cool, let's go again, like rather than chasing it.
For sure. It's almost like if maybe a foot slipped off a pedal or something like that, and we keep going, like it's going to compound, it's going to get worse and worse.
So
and
just
instead of having one small problem, we may end up having a few problems, a big problem. So it's like stop it, reset before things get worse. I love that. That's fantastic. And if you are going down kind of a steeper and deeper trail, like we were the other day there, and you've stopped to reset, there's another feature right in front of you. How do you go about doing that? Are you kind of gonna tracks down and drop straight into it, or?
Well, for me, I think it was like definitely way more of a calculated rider than just a sort of balls out, like go for it rider. So I think on trails like that, like I definitely appreciate the time to like look at stuff and like work out, whether it be that 20 seconds, just like scope stuff out. Okay, cool, let's give it, let's do it. This is how we're riding it. I think like, if you can keep that good vibe going, like then it's it's easier and easier. You're not chasing it, you're not having to like fully reset yourself or try and like put things in the past to focus on the things forward. It sort of compounds in a good way, like you're building, like, oh man, like sweet, I rode this section, like or and it goes from there.
So you're almost focusing on like what went well. You're like, oh sweet, I'm gonna do it. And let that compound as you go down.
And that can even go from ride to ride, and it can progressively build throughout season, or whatever.
Fantastic. Do you have any way of reflecting post ride on maybe what went well and what you could improve on?
I don't know. Well, a beer,
maybe in the pub, like we're doing now.
No, I think it's probably could do more of that, but like I think it is an interesting point to like think like back on rides, like what what went well, like just to capture those moments, like these visual cues, these visual pictures, but like just like like what went well on that ride. Like
I know I find like conversations with you after a ride super valuable, whether we're having a beer together or not. Totally. Just like talking about like what went well, what didn't, what are we going to work on next time. And I think that's cool, because then you go into the next ride already knowing almost like, oh, what's my goal for this ride? Or like what went well, so what can I go into with no hesitation? What can I go into with confidence this time? Fantastic, dude. From your perspective as an experienced rider and as a professional instructor over all these years, if you could pick just one, what's the biggest obstacle that people usually face in achieving their riding goals?
Yeah, I think it can differ from like different people, obviously, but like, I think, we work a lot with a lot of like intermediate writers, people who have pushed and pushed and ultimately plateaued in their writing. So I think like a challenge that people people see is that I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people like don't have much time necessarily to like really invest like we do. Like we're pretty lucky to be able to like ride for a living and teach and guide and get out ride personally a lot as well. So it's it takes a bit of time, and people want results really quickly. Like, so I think you know where it's cool, like, as like where we get to ride with some people for 4 sessions or something like this, so it's private or group or whatever, but it's a little bit more time to be able to just like slowly like absorb stuff, get out there, do some riding. It can take a bit of time. So I think the challenge, like physically, mentally, like is different for different people, I think, but like things that's a common thing is the want for like immediate results really quickly, and I think people need to be okay with it being a bit of a process.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think so true. I've never had that answer before, but kind of as you're saying, I'm like, yeah, totally. Like often, we want the results overnight, and I'm the same as well. I'm like, I'd love to be better at jumping. But I still haven't given it the time it deserves, so it doesn't happen.
Or you're giving it time, and it's just you're filling up the glass slowly, so it might be next season by that point, but hey, man, like, we're just having fun. It's just riding bikes, so yeah.
And I mean, going and getting a lesson is usually the quickest way to fill up that class a little faster, isn't it?
Just a little quicker. Kind of like,
what things do I need to be practicing?
Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah.
Fantastic. And in terms of kind of idols for you, or people you look up to, is there anyone you look up to in the mountain bike world? Any favorite riders?
Oh, so many. Yeah. I mean, around here there's lots of people. It was unbelievable seeing Thomas ride the trails the other day. There's just like some lines, and the way in which he rides the trail is just so unique. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think, like in our friends group, I think Levi is a rider that I look up to, not just like in his riding, but he's also his ability to like create a safe space in order for other people to progress is like awesome.
Yeah,
certainly felt it myself, like when we're out just riding, just me and him, and he'll be riding through something, and without turning on his sort of full-on instructor hat, he'll have you riding through something, like, and it's super cool.
It is, isn't it? Yeah,
but
really, like, he's got a really good way of like reducing the pressure and just being like, hey, we're just hanging out here.
Yeah,
but if you want to try
check this out, like,
exactly.
like, and but yeah, and then other stuff, like I think there's some pretty wild riders, like Lowell Wilcox from Anchorage, like as a rider, she's in the gravel like adventure biking world, but it's like she's an unbelievable like human being in terms of somebody who can push herself to like ride like from Anchorage to Banff to line up at the start of the Tour Divide, and then go and smash the all-time record and stuff like that. And it's just
talk about warm-ups there.
What's like what's possible is, it's pretty amazing. And
yeah,
for sure she is a pretty cool cat, for sure.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, like great person to look up there in terms of like perseverance. And it's kind of like, what is possible?
Fitness, what's possible on a bike.
And just being like, I can do this, even though maybe no one else is doing that. Everyone else is driving to the start of the race.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome. And I'm going to be respectful of your time here and let you get back to van building in just a second. But another question I wanted to ask you, we've had this conversation a lot about kind of progression and talking about coaching people and our own writing as well. And I know you've got this idea of kind of incremental progression, which is a really cool way to think about our progression as a writer. Can you dig into that a little bit? Tell us what you mean by incremental progression.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as I was saying, like, like one ride can compound and sort of feed to the next, but then, I think seasons to seasons, like you want to be setting some achievable goals and working towards them, just taking the time to enjoy the process. Like it's mountain biking is hard, like it's tough, totally. Man, there's a lot going on. It's physical, it's mental, like there's so many aspects to it. So it's how can we recognize what we need to work on or what we could work on, and just take small steps and to get to there and have fun with that.
Totally.
You know, yeah, like, you know, for me, like learning manuals, for example, is something that, you know, I know that we're both like would be loving to like do better manuals. And
for sure.
you know, it's you know, and I say like it comes in waves. Like there's certainly times where I put the time aside more regularly, like each ride, like we'll do like 10 minutes or so of practice, and, you know, try and work on these skills. Sometimes, yeah, do less of it, but enjoy the process, like, and not getting frustrated that you can't immediately overnight like be like as good as you can.
For sure. And that's a good example there as well. You know, us learning manuals, we're not kind of going all the way up to the top of Mount Seymour and manually down the road like some of our buddies
Totally.
do.
Yeah.
It's like,
you're like, man,
we're
that's
going
awesome.
to the dog park down the road in the grass to try and learn to start with.
Yeah, totally.
About breaking it down, taking those little steps.
Yeah, enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. Having fun with it.
Yeah, just like, have fun with it.
Being okay with turning the terrain back and, you know, maximum skill.
Yeah. No, totally.
That's fantastic, man. Well, I've certainly enjoyed this. You know, I've touched on so many interesting things, both from, you know, your writing experience and your experience teaching.
Yeah.
As well as kind of being able to teach with some of the best in the business as well over the years. It's pretty rad. But what's the biggest takeaway out of everything we've talked about that you hope listeners can kind of take away and learn from this conversation?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, just the world of like the mental side of biking. I think, you know, we were touched on it there in terms of like physical injuries, or, you know, the skills of riding. Like these are things that are shiny object people focus on, but I think it's becoming more and more common that people are really switching into the mental side of biking and paying more attention to it. And I think I just think it's really interesting. It's an interesting world to sort of critique yourself a little bit about, you know, whether it be each ride, like, well, how did I feel like going through that? Or like, you know, where am I at this point of, you know, this month, you know, am I feeling really confident, or am I not feeling confident? Like, why am I not feeling that confident? Like, is there things that you could make small changes to, and paying more attention to that, rather than like, oh man, I need a new fork, like I need a new this or whatever. It's just like, well, pay a bit more attention over here.
Totally. Yeah, I think it's this kind of one performance factor that's almost untapped at the moment. Totally. A lot of people aren't even aware of it. They're like, oh, I've got a problem, I must need a new bike part. It's like, the new bike part probably will make you a tiny little bit better. Or it might make you feel a tiny little bit better. It might make you look cooler for sure. But it won't necessarily solve all your problems. It's like, we've got this great big performance factor here. That's pretty much untapped. So we can make small little changes in that and have like huge levels of progression on the bike. So,
and then like, how can we create vibes that are fun, like for people, like in group rides, or, you know, have empathy for maybe like what you're saying or how you're acting on the trail can impact somebody else's ride. There's I think it's something like, you know, that mental side, like is obviously for ourselves, like how are we feeling, but like what are we doing that can impact on other people's, and are we making the best vibe possible for other people?
For sure, that's a really good point.
It's it's something that we obviously we should be doing, like as much as possible, making it as fun as possible.
We often get clients at work, don't we, that have just been like dragged down the hardest trail on the shore for like their first couple of rides, you know, by a friend or by a partner or something like that. And like, mountain biking's terrifying. That's why I came for a lesson.
Or it's no fun.
So
like,
it's like,
like, what? Like you're totally you're in the wrong place.
Exactly. So it's like sometimes, you know, when we're riding with other people, we need to like look through their lens and be like, you know, what was fun for me when I was at that level? Or even if you can't even remember being at that level, it's like, well, what will be fun for them today? In order of just thinking like, you know, this trail's easy because it's easy for me.
Totally. And choosing those right trails, and talking about like removing the pressure from it all, though, like, because ultimately it's fun. It should be a fun experience from start to end, getting out on your bike. So keeping that as the primary reason or the primary focus, and that means different things for different groups of people, but making sure that it's still fun for everyone.
Totally. Really good answer. Look, I'm going to go deep and hit you with a couple of curveballs for these last couple of questions. Get ready. If you could go back, what would you say to your 20-year-old self?
Holy moly. I'm still 20 now.
21, so last year.
No. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's a hard one. I think, what was I doing at 20? Yeah, maybe not too much different really to now, like pushing, like to progress writing, you know, career wise, like looking for good opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think it's, yeah, do more, do as much as you can, right? With new people, do as many things as you can.
Yeah, taking those opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it, mate. Good answer. Good answer. And looking ahead, where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I dream would be like, you know, just becoming a Canadian citizen last year would be awesome. Like having some sort of like hybrid thing where you're like living in Scotland, but ultimately still connected to the community out here in BC. And yeah, maybe teaching, guiding, doing some cool stuff in Scotland, but then maybe a few trips and stuff over here in BC now and again. And yeah,
fantastic.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Man, that sounds like the dream.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see you make that happen.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, man, thank you again for coming and sitting down in my
worries.
backyard here. It's been
Yeah,
an
sick.
absolute pleasure kind of digging into your brains and recording some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I know, you know, we've been having these conversations for the last 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
And I've been, you know, picking up bits and pieces, but it's so cool to finally just be able to sit down and ask you all the questions in my head. So thank you, man.
Cheers. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, happy travels around BC this summer. And, you know, I'm sure we'll see you out on the trails.
Yeah, definitely.
You take off.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Right on,
Fantastic,
man.
Good.
Cheers.
What's up, guys? Just one more thing before you hit the trails. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe and don't be a stranger. I'd love to hear from you about any topics or particular episodes that you enjoyed, and even about any mountain bikers that you'd love to hear me have on the show in the future. You can find me on Instagram at the_mind_mountain. This podcast, mountain biking, and mindset are all things that are very, very close to my heart. So I feel super grateful to be able to share these conversations with you. Thank you all for listening. That's all for now. Big love to you all, and I'll see you next time.